UFC 301 is on our doorstep, and it's time for me to give my predictions and breakdown for every single one of these fights on this solid card. I know a lot of people are complaining about this one. It's not very stacked, but I see people saying this is the worst card in UFC history. Worst pay-per-view card in UFC history. No, it's not. You know, we had to put up with Aldana versus Amanda Nunes, where the only good fight was Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. There's like 10 solid fights on this. And I know there aren't many big names, but these are relevant matchups. There are tons of prospects on this card. There are lots of amazing stylistic matchups. There's a couple stinky ones, but I'm really only talking a couple. I actually really love this card. Like, the prospects on this card are all relevant. If you're a hardcore fan, you should enjoy this. Okay, you don't have to say it's the best card ever, but it is going to be an entertaining one. All right, so let's get on to this. If you guys want to hear my take on a particular one of these fights, make sure to check the timestamps in the description. This is going to be a long one, as all of my breakdown videos are for these pay-per-view cards. But let's get into the first one. First fight on this card, Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borjas. I am picking Alessandro Costa. This is the Erceg victim, right? But it's kind of funny because Costa got knocked out by pillow hands Amir Albazi, but not Erceg. You know what? He actually did pretty well against Erceg, and Erceg is good. He's a good boxer. He's a pretty good grappler. But Costa in that fight did well, didn't get rocked, showcased some pretty decent defense at times, and, you know, he has good grappling too. And I saw Kevin Borjas' fight with Joshua Van, who we know is like a solid, high-output volume striker who's got like a really good gas tank, and he pushes the pace real well. Kevin Borjas, outside of the first round where he knocked down Joshua Van and had one big dynamic moment, couldn't really do anything else in that fight. Went to a couple of takedowns. They got shucked off pretty easily. And I just think that Alessandro Costa is going to take him down. And I think he's going to face a lot less adversity in finding a takedown than he did with Erceg. And I think it's going to be kind of similar to the Jimmy Flick fight, where Kevin Borjas, once he's on the mat, which Joshua Van was able to take him down too, but instead of Joshua Van chasing after submissions and kind of getting ahead of himself, and I think he was really looking for like a bonus to get a finish, I think that we're going to see Alessandro Costa slow things down, opt for control over the finish, and I think he is going to keep Borjas down on the mat and kind of ride it out to a decision. Maybe he gets a ground and pound TKO. He does have a lot of power in his ground and pound. So I am going to pick Alessandro Costa by decision. I trust him to get this one done, so I'll go with Alessandro Costa by decision. Let's get on to the next one. Ismael Bonfim versus Vinc Pichel. Let me guess. Ismael Bonfim is being given a layup in Brazil to get a win and bounce back from his L to Benoit Saint-Denis. Okay, so he's being set up for victory here. If you're picking Vinc Pichel, like, you're just trying to be different with this one. Vinc Pichel is going to get his ass kicked, okay? He's 41 years old. He's one of the most inactive fighters in this lightweight division. And, you know, there's no shame in losing to Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis kicked him to shreds, backed him up, took him down, dominated him on the ground, and just pushed a pace on him and subbed him. I don't think that Vinc Pichel has that sort of ground game, dude. So I think that Ismael Bonfim is probably going to get a nice knockout, or maybe he's going to drop Vinc Pichel and lock up a submission. But either way, he's going to finish Vinc Pichel, okay? Bonfim. Ismael Bonfim is a finisher. Vinc Pichel is a 41-year-old man who's fighting like once every 5 years. So, yep, I am picking Ismael Bonfim. Let's get on to the next one. Jamie Mullarkey versus Mauricio Ruffy. I think this is the end of Jamie Mullarkey. I think this is the last time Jamie Mullarkey is going to be seen in the UFC. Maybe he'll have one more, but Mullarkey's just been getting sent to Shadow Realm after Shadow Realm after Shadow Realm. I mean, this guy got knocked out by Volkanovski back in the day, and that's just one of the few. Getting knocked out by Nasrat Haqparast? I mean, that's not a good look. Jalen Turner, Muhammad Naimov. I think Mauricio Ruffy is a nightmare for this guy. He's fast, he's dynamic, he's cocky. He's kind of like the Brazilian Raymond Daniels, this guy. He's a scary striker. A lot of spinning attacks. He hides what he's going to throw in the spinning attack really well. It might be a punch. It might be a kick. It might be a body kick. It might go to the head. This is a nightmare. for Mullarkey. I know Mullarkey's kind of scrappy and he looks like one of these old school 1920s guys, but he's fucked in this fight. I think Mauricio is going to knock his head off. Speaking of Nasrat Haqparast, the guy that lost to Nasrat Haqparast, Joaquim Silva, is fighting Drakkar Khlose. And I'm picking Drakkar Khlose, okay? Just a different level of competition that we're talking about. Joaquim Silva is bouncing off of a barely win, I'll call it a hardly win, over Clay Guida, who almost broke him, who was getting to him, who was piecing him up. He scraped by to a decision against Clay Guida, but let's not forget, this dude has lost to, like, Ricky Glenn, which is just an ugly look, man. He's losing to Nasrat Haqparast. He's, he got destroyed by Arman. That's not really the worst look in the world. He actually hurt Arman. Crazy how he hurts Arman, but not Charles Oliveira. Listen, he's just not really good. He's mid. He's like, your typical stiff bodybuilder. There's not a whole lot going on in this guy's game. He's got some decent front kicks to the body, but that's kind of it. Drakkar Khlose, I mean, the last loss that this guy has is to Beneil Dariush. Other than that, a win over Bobby Green, a win over Lando Venata, a win over Mark Chikadze, a win over Christos Giagos, Rafa Garcia, Joe Selecki, Brandon Jenkins. Like, pretty solid. Like, he's pretty solid and he's reliable. He goes to a lot of decisions. He can push a decent pace. He has decent grappling. I mean, we saw him slam the heck out of Joe Selecki, who also is like a really solid grappler, who I did pick to beat him. It's a pretty good win to have over Joe Selecki, the slam that he got. He doesn't really fight that often, so it's kind of easy to forget about Drakkar Khlose. And, people look at him as he's not really good because of this wild moment he had with Beneil, but that's like a one-off. I don't think that he's going to lose this one. I think he's actually going to win this by decision. I'll go with Drakkar Khlose by a decision win against the shittier, less proven guy that loses to Ricky Glenn in Joaquim Silva. Let's get on to the next one. Now we're getting interesting. This is actually one of my favorite fights on this card. Gene Silva, wild man, okay? He's like the Yuri Prohaska of the lighter weight classes versus one of the most boring fighters in UFC history, William Gomis. The good thing about this one is William Gomis got hyped up in his first fight in Paris. He's a French fighter, and they were talking about how cocky he is and how, you see this guy around the gym and his training partners talk about how he just thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. And you think he's about to go out there and style on his opponent, and he goes to like a shitty pit-pat decision over Jarno Aarons. And I was saying, you know what, that's kind of a shit win. Jarno Aarons just kind of let him dance around and play patty cake. But you know what? That win has aged well. Jarno Aarons had an amazing performance over Nugent in his last outing, and he went to war with him and showed a really good version of himself. And William Gomis, I think he's kind of like Izzy. Izzy has the ability to take these scrappy fighters and just kind of make them look like they're mid, while he cruises around on the back foot and he's on his bike and he's chipping away and he's sliding. He's chipping away and he's moving out the way, and he's just kind of on his bike the whole time. And, that's a really good thing. Now, when I say mid, it's not that he's like totally dominating these guys and blowing them out of the water. But again, he has a good ability to take these scrappy fighters and kind of frustrate them and shut them down and just not give them these openings. And he's not looking for finishes, but he's just finding his moments. He's picking his shots, whether that's low kicks, teeps to the body. If he has to throw a punch, he'll only really throw a punch to really... He's like a guy that defends himself with punches, where if you're getting close, he'll let a punch go just to kind of break off and get back into the center of the octagon or get some distance. He's not really going to offensively hunt you down with punches. He's not going to look for a finish, because this guy couldn't finish a fly, and he's coming off of a finish, but it was more of a nut shot TKO in his last outing in France. And man, I can't stand William Gomis. I think he's a really boring fighter to watch, but he's fast. He's clean. Gene Silva, on the other hand, as I said, this dude is fun to watch. And I wanted to pick Gene Silva. I really did. But I can't just pick him because he's more entertaining, okay? Like, Gene Silva dominated... Who did he fight? I rewatched this fight yesterday. One of these cans, these like battle droid builds that has been smoked a million times. Weston Wilson. Yeah, Weston Wilson. UFC debut against Weston Wilson. Destroyed him, knocked him down like 5 times in that fight, and then got on the mic and started hooting and hollering like a dog. I just don't think he's going to be able to find his way on the inside of William Gomis. And I could see if anyone gets frustrated, it's going to be Gene Silva. I think Gene Silva is going to be the type of guy to get frustrated. He's going to be winging big hooks. He's going to be doing everything in his power to land a big KO shot. And I just think Gomis is going to be backpedaling and kicking and pedaling and playing patty cake and having some boring ass sissy style of fighting. So I'll go with William Gomis just by being a little bit too fast. He's going to have a significant speed advantage. And you know what? I'll just say this. I actually think this is actually going to be the perfect type of opponent for William Gomis to finish. Because I could see Gene Silva getting frustrated and just not being able to land big bombs and not really having this guy sit in front of him enough to where he kind of overextends in the second or third and chases after something, and maybe he could get walked onto like a knee or a head kick or something clean down the middle. So don't be shocked if William Gomis gets a finish. But either way, I think Gomis is just going to be too fast for him. But I will be rooting for Gene Silva to pull off the big KO. Let's get on to another one. On to the next one. Another fight that I absolutely love. Myktybek Orolbai versus Elves Brenner. Okay? Now, this is one heck of a matchup. We got Elves Brenner, who now has a hairline, versus a man that has probably more experience than anyone else in the UFC. He's been around for like 10,000 years. All right? Probably even more than that. This is the oldest UFC fighter that's ever walked the earth. He is the OG person. And I think that, dude, you're not coming in here and you're not messing with the OG. All right? I'm picking Orolbai by a submission. I think that Orolbai is the real deal, dude. And I think that Elves Brenner is good. He's dangerous. He's the more fun pick. He's the guy that I was considering picking. But, man, if you watch Orolbai and you see his ability to impose his will, and there's always a method to the madness, and I know that Elves Brenner can impose his will too, and that's how he was able to beat Guram Kutateladze. Don't think I'm forgetting about that. That was an amazing fight. He broke Guram down, and I believe he took that shit on short notice. My goodness, that was impressive. But I think Orolbai is going to be a nightmare matchup. Orolbai is going to go for the grappling. He's going to shoot takedowns, and he's going to get it. This guy is ragdolling Bilal Muhammad in the gym. And I know that it's training, and I know that there's, maybe Bilal was letting him get the rounds. And I didn't see that facial expression on Bilal. I saw Bilal trying to do his best to get up to his feet. There's a minute of footage with them grappling, and Mytek's all over him. And that's that lighter man's skill, right? Because this is a lightweight who fought Uros Medic at welterweight, dominated him. And it's not like Uros Medic is a welterweight. Uros Medic was moving up from lightweight. That was his first ever, or no, his second ever welterweight fight. But Orolbai is legit. I'm not saying he's a better grappler than Bilal, but I don't think that's just, it's just Bilal letting him do that. Like, I'm also seeing other footage of him in his fights where he's just totally ragdolling anyone he wants. Like, he's easily out-grappling guys. He does a really good job of getting people to the fence and cornering them and shutting their movement down and going from point A to point B, and he's always looking for a finish in a methodical way, like kind of Shavkat. He reminds me of Shavkat. Okay, of course, they're from the same sort of region in the world, all right? But there is sort of a similarity. It's the same kind of system. Heavy pressure, back you up, put you up against the fence, take you down, and submit you. And Elves Brenner, although he's good and he's got a lot of power and he had a really nice knockout in Brazil with that overhand, the looping overhand, and he knocked out Guram Kutateladze and kind of broke him down, and that's an amazing win. Guram and this guy that he was fighting in Brazil were not really going after consistent takedowns. First of all, Elves was taking down Guram, and then he would get reversed and Guram would get on top of him and start beating him up. But, you know, there are moments where Guram's beating this guy's ass on the ground. And although he's a dog on the feet and he's tough, and I think I'm going to give him the slight edge on the feet, I don't think Orolbai is going to play that game. I think Orolbai's striking is going to be good enough to stand with him, just to back him up, to get from the striking to the grappling. And I'm watching these guys from Shootbox recently, and once they're put on their back, like, they're just kind of sitting ducks. And I know that Shootbox is known for jiu-jitsu, but, you know, first of all, Elves Brenner's takedown defense, he looked decent against Guram. He stuffed a couple of takedowns, but Guram just doesn't put anything on him. We know that about Guram. We know Guram doesn't actually impose his will like that. He's just chucking the takedown out there just to chuck it out there, right? He's throwing the spinning back kick just to throw it, but he's not really putting a lot on it. And I think Orolbai is. And every single shoot box fighter that I've been watching is getting taken down with ease. Like Felipe Dos Santos, I think he got taken down 10 times in his last UFC fight. It was embarrassing. Okay? Edgar Chairez on the Mexico card, I think he fought someone from Shootbox. I forget his name. One of these guys from Shootbox that went 0-5 and got cut. Submitted him. It was the second time they fought. Took him down with ease. These Shootbox guys just don't have great takedown defense. And I think that Charles is actually the anomaly for people that do have decent takedown defense. And even Charles kind of accepts bottom position. I think Orolbai is going to put him up against the fence. I think he's going to take him down. He's going to stink it up a little bit. And eventually, I think he's going to get the submission. He's going to take the neck and get a rear naked choke. So that is my official pick. Orolbai takes down Elvis Brenner, ragdolls him on the ground, and now Orolbai has a full training camp. And if he can totally ragdoll Uros Medic with like a couple days notice, imagine what he can do with the full training camp against a guy that, to be honest, has okay takedown defense, but it's against Guram, who's mostly a kickboxer who just shoots a takedown every once and then to look fancy. But, you know, it's against Guram Kutulidze. All right, let's get on to the next one. Joanderson Brito versus Jack Shore. Oh, man, this actually pains me. This is a painful matchup because I like Jack Shore. And I always talk about the lighter man skill. He's moving up. But I just have to say this, man. I think Jack Shore is in danger. That's right. Jack Shore is literally the definition of a pipsqueak physique. Like, he has love handles, he has like a drooping belly, and he's got like absolutely no density up top, and I don't know, that like he's kind of fast, he has good grappling. I know GSP, oh, they call him the British, the British GSP, because he's like out grappling Timur Valiev, who's like an old man, 40-year-old Dagestani fighter. A failed tough prospect. Bisping was calling him the British GSP. And I get it. Like, he's a well-rounded Brit. But, you know, that's like the British style. Well-rounded. Shoot a takedown and showcase how well-rounded you are. That's like the British style these days. He's good with his grappling. And he got a submission over Makwan Amirkhani, who has no gas tank. We know Makwan Amirkhani. No gas tank. No heart. He loses all the time. Okay, you submit Makwan Amirkhani and you had a tough first round and you really struggled to take him down. That's not the same thing as Joanderson Brito, who's a monster, who's explosive, who's like hopping up to his feet and like twisting Jonathan Pierce into a pretzel and subbing him in the second round and beating him up on the feet. Joanderson Brito has a lot of power in his hands too. And he's a big, strong, hungry. That's another thing that I want to say. Joanderson Brito, check out his Instagram. Check out the footage that he's posting on his story. This guy is running in the freaking jungle, I see. And that's a hungry man that's probably not going to lose in front of his home crowd. And he's fighting a fat flyweight looking Jack Shore, who has like a muffin top, who's like got no density, no muscle, kind of fast. He's kind of fast. Like, he has some whippy punches, some whippy straights, but you know who also has some really fast straight punches and a really strong jab? Who's gonna hit him way harder? Joanderson Brito. You know who's built like a brick wall that actually has like decent grappling and a good submission game? Joanderson Brito, who can also toss people around and ragdoll them too. I think that Joanderson Brito is gonna muscle him around and show him that, you know what, there is such thing as lighter man skill. There is, but you can't just come up here and not build yourself up into this weight class either. You have to actually like put up. That's the issue with Darren Till. Darren Till moved up to middleweight so that he wouldn't have to cut weight, but he didn't actually focus on building himself up. Darren Till went from being a huge welterweight to a tiny middleweight, whereas he should have been more like Michel Pereira, who's a big welterweight that builds himself up into a big middleweight, right? And I see Jack Shore just no longer cutting weight. And I know how great it is. It's so great. You don't have to cut weight. Yeah, but like, you still need to do your strength and conditioning. You can't just look like that. I honestly, I mean, like, I know I don't want to pick a fight based on the build, but it comes into it. Jack Shore, he's not a dangerous man on the feet. He doesn't have power. His win over Timur Valiev, a failed tough prospect, was overhyped just because he was Dagestani. Like, good luck, dude. Joanderson Brito would have freaking minced him up and mashed him into bits. Joanderson Brito would have ate Timur Valiev for breakfast. That's nothing to him. Jack Shore is going to be getting out-jabbed. He's going to be getting outgunned, out-muscled in the clinch. And I think it's going to be an ugly, ugly beatdown, okay? We're going from Makwan Mirkani, who has no gas tank, to Joanderson Brito with a gas tank who's extremely explosive, who's hungry as hell. This dude's doing backflips in the octagon, bro. And you think he's going to lose to Jack Shore? I know Jack Shore's like a crispy British guy, but, you know, he's got some crispy striking and some clean grappling. But, you know, he's not the type of monster. He doesn't stand off the board that much. If this guy was like really shocking us with every performance, if he just totally ran through Makwan Amirkhani, I would pick him to win this fight. I'd be like, you know what? He doesn't look that impressive, but at least he ran through Makwan Amirkhani. The first round was very underwhelming. You know, there was a fight there. There was a battle. There was a battle there. And I just don't want to see a battle with Makwan Amirkhani. And that is one of the weaker fighters in the featherweight division. So I am going with Joanderson Brito to teach Jack Shore a lesson that you got to build yourself up a little bit. You know, you got to put on some muscle. You got to put on some strength. Can't just walk into this division and come out here and take out one of the hungriest fighters that hasn't gotten his shot at the rankings. Every hardcore fan's been calling for Joanderson Brito to get a ranked opponent. You can't just take that man out when you're looking like, you know, freaking muffin top. So either way, let's get on to the next one. Now we're on to the main card. Paul Craig versus Caio Borralho. I'm going to go with Caio Borralho by a KO. At one point, Paul Craig, when he came down to middleweight and he out-grappled Andre Muniz, I was thinking, dude, that this guy is going to be an issue at middleweight. He's one of the best submission artists. And then he gets ran through by Brendan Allen. And we're thinking, holy fuck, Brendan Allen is just like leveled up so much. I wonder what he's going to do when he gets Chris Curtis down, who had his back taken by a Mavov. Well, he takes Chris Curtis down and can't really do anything with it. Actually did a little bit worse than a Mavov in the grappling against Chris Curtis. Took him down when he wanted to, but either way, I think that Andre Muniz is a little bit less dynamic. I think that he's a little bit more awkward and clunky, and I think he's, well, let's just say, really overrated because of that submission win over Jacare Souza, which, to be honest, was really not worth a damn if you ask me. Submitting an old head Jacare Souza, who is basically walking into the octagon with a cane. I think he had a limp too that week. Listen, I think we overrated Andre Muniz, and, you know, Paul Craig was able to take him down and beat him up a little bit. I think he even ground and pounded TKO'd him. But I'm picking Caio Borralho just because Borralho is a lot more athletic on the feet. Doesn't have the same reach as Muniz, but is much more athletic, dynamic. And I was criticizing his striking going into the Abu Smagomedov fight because he didn't look that great on the feet against Michal Oleksiejczuk. But he's improved. He has a really good jab. He's really fast. He has pretty good kicks. And I just think that he looks like he's super hard to take down, and he's not going to accept bottom position. Paul Craig has one way to win this fight, and that's by getting a takedown and just hoping and praying that he finds his way into a triangle somehow, some way. But I don't think he's going to get that. I think that Caio Borralho is going to beat him up on the feet. I think he's going to be keen to stand on the feet. This is middleweight skill versus shitty light heavyweight striking. Like the shittiest light heavyweight striking you could imagine. Slow Paul Craig, who's crafty, but at the same time, when we say Paul Craig's crafty, we just kind of mean, you know, he's getting his ass swept on the ground. Maybe he can pull something off out of nowhere. It's like a pity craft. He's pity crafty, right? But I'm going with Caio. Caio is athletic. He's strong. And I think eventually he's just going to find a big shot on the feet. He's going to put Paul Craig down, who was rocked and hurt in his last fight. I'm pretty sure he got sat down and dropped by Brendan Allen. He's taken a lot of damage, Paul Craig. I think Caio Borralho is going to get a nice KO in the first or second round. On to the next one. Ihor Potieria versus Michel Pereira. I'm picking Michel Pereira to win this fight via lighter weight class skill. That's right. Former welterweight Michel Pereira that's demolished two pretty decent middleweights, Andre Petrosky and, of course, Michal Oleksiejczuk, who's a tough, durable guy. He ran through Michal in the first round. Like, Michal Oleksiejczuk, we were talking about how durable he was. He got cut through in the first. Body shots, submission. It was a demolition job for Michel Pereira, who wasn't really finishing a lot of people at welterweight, but now that he's moved up and he has the crazy speed advantage and he's no longer cutting weight, maybe he could put more emphasis on his shots too, just because he doesn't have to worry about gassing out. Dude, like, the skill gap is on display, and one of the biggest skill gaps is from welterweight to middleweight. Well, he's not only fighting a middleweight, he's fighting a former light heavyweight that couldn't even cut it at light heavyweight. I like Ihor Potieria. He's pretty good. But when I say pretty good, it's like he's got decent technique, but he doesn't have that dog in him, right? All right, he got destroyed by, well, I mean, he was beating up Rodolfo Bellato, which is a training partner of Alex Pereira. But Bellato's a little bit of a brute. He doesn't really do anything all that well. It's just that he's super tough, and once he gets you into the deep waters, he can do well. I just don't think that this is little Bellato's going to be kind of plodding his way forward with mediocre skill and relies on a gritty war. I mean, this is a really fast, speedy, well-rounded, powerful, dynamic striker that's going to be able to catch Ihor Potieria a lot easier than Ihor's previous opponents that were also catching him and also knocking him out. Okay? I think this is going to be an easy first-round finish for Michel Pereira. Ihor's chin is a little bit iffy. He's got basic striking, but this is just a different level of striking, different sort of skill than what he's used to, facing a former welterweight right now. So I'm going to go with the first-round KO for Michel Pereira. Maybe he's going to drop him and jump on the back and get a rear naked choke. But either way, it's going to be a first-round finish for Michel Pereira. Now we're getting on to none other than Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. I told you guys I was picking Anthony Smith, and I'm changing my pick to Vitor Petrino. First of all, let me just say this. We talk about Anthony Smith, and, you know, he's got so much more experience than Vitor, and he's going to shut this guy down. He's just so experienced. His last 3 wins since his best win ever, Alexander Gustafsson in 2019, have been over Ryan Spann, where his second win over Spann was much worse than his first. Like, it was razor close. Okay? Split decision, where Spann wasn't even throwing low kicks. And since then, that win has not aged well at all. Because the reason I picked Spann to beat Bogdan Guskov this past weekend, the Anthony Smith on paper, the real Anthony Smith, is because Bogdan just didn't have the same experience as Smith, and Smith beat Spann. I don't think Bogdan is as good as Smith right now. Look at all the experience Smith has. He's been in the top 15 for a minute. Bogdan can't be that good, and he just blows Ryan Spann out of the water on the feet. Okay? And walks right through him, finishes him with ease in the second round. I mean, that win has not aged well. Anthony Smith's last 3, Ryan Spann twice and Devin Clark. And other than that, he's got his ass kicked by everyone. Like, he's gotten destroyed by Glover, Alexander Rakic, Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker, Khalil Roundtree. Anthony Smith has been the light heavyweight punching bag. And I think that Vitor Petrino is actually better than Ryan Spann. And I think that Vitor Petrino is a lot better than Devin Clark. And he's not just a big, powerful oaf. Like, I think there's this idea, if you listen to Anthony Smith talk about him too, he's just a big, powerful, strong guy. And I've dealt with those before. Who have you dealt with? Like, Ryan Spann is powerful, and he's a big dude, but he has no fight IQ. He's kind of chinny, and he gasses out easily. Vitor Petrino actually has a really nice gas tank. Very good gas tank. He was able to push a very hard pace against Anton Turkalj in his first ever UFC fight. He was able to push a great pace in the third round against Tyson Pedro in his last fight, where things were close. It's a close fight going into the third round against a veteran like Tyson Pedro. What does he do? He takes it to him. He steals that round. He makes sure that he gets it. And he backed him up and kind of bullied him around the cage, throwing nice kicks, jabbing him up. I think he took him down as well. Vitor Petrino has a good gas tank for the size that he is. He's probably on sauce. Let's just get that out of the way. So that obviously is something to mention. He's a massive person. He is really strong. He is a freaking brute, but he's a thinking man in the cage. When I'm watching Vitor Petrino fight, he's actually doing pretty well technically, defensively. Like, this guy has good head movement. He's dynamic. He picks his shots. He doesn't overextend. He's actually a very clean, surgical fighter. And again, it's like he looks like a bodybuilder. You wouldn't really expect him to have that, but he is a pretty smart fighter. And I think because of that, I trust him to kick the shit out of Anthony Smith's legs. which is something that we know is a big weakness in Anthony Smith. I'd expect Vitor Petrino to want to watch Smith's fight back with a couple of his past opponents, and he'll see right away he does not deal with low kicks very well. If he watches that Johnny Walker fight, he'll see that. And this dude has nasty kicks. He's got like tree trunk legs, and not only does he have like heavy kicks, but they're also really dynamic. I mean, you should look at this guy's body kicks, his head kicks. I won't even be surprised if he catches Anthony Smith with a head kick, okay? And I just think that although Anthony Smith is more experienced and he's been in brawls, and I don't think he's just going to get knocked out with one punch, I think Vitor Petrino's going to pick his shots. Anthony Smith's going to be kind of stationary right there in front of him to hit. And I think that Vitor Petrino's going to be kicking the fuck out of his legs, jabbing him up. He's got a really nice jab, strong, powerful jab that he was rocking Tyson Pedro with. And I think he's just going to gain confidence, and Anthony Smith is going to wither away and lose confidence as the fight goes on, as he kind of finds out, I'm not going to be able to take this guy down so easily. And first of all, you know, it'd be one thing if I knew Anthony Smith had been kind of changing his game to turn into a heavy pressure grappler, and, you know, he was going to shoot a ton of takedowns, and maybe he could take down Vitor Petrino and pull off a submission. But Anthony Smith hardly shoots takedowns in his fights. And it's like he shot one takedown against Khalil Roundtree in the first round and didn't go back to it for the rest of the fight and just accepted punishment on the feet. I think he's just going to get bullied around the octagon in this fight. I think he's going to get kicked to shreds. I think he's going to get jabbed up. He's coming off of a brutal KO loss. He's a little bit delusional about his skill set. And I think that he's kind of underestimating Vitor Petrino a little bit as just a big, powerful dude. And I think Vitor Petrino is going to surprise him with his fight IQ and with the fact that he doesn't make a lot of mistakes and the fact that he has a good chin. And I actually won't be surprised if we see Vitor Petrino beat the fuck out of Anthony Smith on the ground. I think that that's what we're going to see in the third round. I think Vitor Petrino is going to have a close first round, but he's going to be landing the bigger shots. He's going to be picking apart Anthony Smith's legs. He's going to do a better job of it in the second. Smith is going to shoot a takedown or something, and it's going to get easily stuffed by Vitor Petrino. Again, massive person with good wrestling and good grappling himself. Let's not forget. He submitted, who was it? I think not Modestas Bukauskas. He submitted Paraknio with an arm triangle, who he was ragdolling in that fight. And I think in the third round, he's going to have so much confidence that he's going to go to the grappling and try to prove a point against Anthony Smith, who does talk up his grappling. He's going to smash him on the ground, and I think he's going to beat the crap out of him. Again, if you're picking Anthony Smith, let's actually look at his record really quick. Again, you're going to be like, well, Anthony Smith, come on. He lost to Khalil Roundtree, but he's beating the other guys. Who are the other guys? Ryan Spann, Devin Clark, Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute, there was a freaky leg injury in that fight. There was some kind of freak incident with his leg. I'm not looking too deeply into this, but let's look at this. Look at his record on screen. Lost to Khalil Roundtree, lost to Walker, lost to Magomed, lost to Rakic, lost to Glover Teixeira. And then there's like a win over Alexander Gustafsson. So what are his wins? That's 2019, where Smith was in his prime. His wins are over Ryan Spann and Devin Clark. Ryan Spann is honestly one of the most overrated light heavyweights, and I think it's clear at this point. He hasn't beaten anyone either. Vitor Petrino, undefeated going into this, in front of his home country of Brazil. He's actually a very smart fighter, and he, again, doesn't overextend, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Good gas tank, great kicks, solid jab, good head movement, good grappling, sturdy, durable. I don't see him losing this. This is not like a low IQ Ryan Spann who's chinny, that gasses out easily. This is not Devin Clark, who is honestly a can, if we think about it. Devin Clark was never looking this good. And he beat Devin Clark when he was closer to his prime. That was prime Anthony Smith, 2021. His last one over Ryan Spann, a whole lot worse than the first one. He's declining, and I think he's underestimating Vitor, and I think Vitor Petrino is going to beat him up. I'm going to say a clean sweep, 30-27, 30-26. I think 30-26, 10-8 round in the third for Vitor Petrino. He gets this one done. Let's go on to the next one. Jose Aldo versus Jonathan Martinez. I'm picking Jose Aldo. That's right. I'm changing my pick because I don't think Jonathan Martinez is as good as people make him out to be. I know he's like the dark horse of the bantamweight division, but there are so many bantamweights. Like, a lot of them are really good. It's probably the most skilled division in the UFC. He just happens to be one of the guys that's standing out because he has like leg kick TKOs and no one else does that. But His best win ever, which I believe is over Said Nurmagomedov, right? That's like a win that makes his record seem really good or makes him kind of stand out as, oh, he beat Said, though. He didn't beat Said. He lost that fight. He got his fucking ass whooped on the feet. I don't understand how he won that fight. And I've watched it back for the third time. I've never once seen him winning that fight. And I was kind of falling into the hype of, yeah, Aldo, he has good leg kick defense, but man, this guy, Jonathan Martinez, is just leg kick TKOing everyone. And that's not necessarily the case. He's got great low kicks, probably the best low kicks in MMA. I'll give him that. But Jose Aldo, if there's anyone I'm going to trust to have the experience to be able to deal with low kicks, that's going to be able to not get KO'd by low kicks, it's probably Aldo. All right, Yanez gets TKO'd by them. Cub Swanson gets TKO'd by them. But I feel like Aldo, like the other 10, 12 Jonathan Martinez opponents that haven't been KO'd by low kicks, I feel like he might have a good chance at not being TKO'd by them because he has amazing low kick defense. I rewatched his fight with Pedro Munoz, for example. And like clockwork, I know Pedro doesn't have the same low kicks and people talk about his low kicks, but they're not that good. He just throws a lot of them. Like clockwork, Jose Aldo is checking every single one. He's like Jan Blachowicz, right? He's turning his shin out. He's lifting it up. Every single one he's stopping. He's lifting his leg up, just getting it out of the way. I think Jose Aldo is going to be able to walk Jonathan Martinez down. I think he's going to deal with the low kicks. And I think that Aldo's boxing is going to shit all over Martinez's boxing, who he doesn't have hands. Martinez, he's kind of like his boy Chris Gutierrez. They train at the same gym. They're all kicks and nothing else. He doesn't have amazing grappling, okay? He got out-grappled easily by Said Nurmagomedov, almost submitted 5 times in that fight. Taken down. What does he have? He has low kicks and a clinch game, and that's it. Low kicks and clinch. Now, I'm a little bit worried for Aldo because he's coming back and he's saying that this is the last fight on his contract and he wants to fight it out, and he's saying he wants to be a champion still, but I don't know, man. Maybe he just wants to get out of his contract and do something else, right? Like, I'm worried that he's not coming back for the right reasons. Maybe it's just for a paycheck. But at the same time, man, I trust Aldo as being one of these old heads that can maintain his speed, right? Even Aldo, when he was in his, I was going to say late 30s. He's never been in his late 30s. According to the Aldo fans, he lost to Volk when he was 52. But Aldo at 35 was still looking amazing against Merab. Still looked great. Takedown defense holding up. So that's one thing we have to get out of the way. He's not getting taken down. If he wants to, I actually think he can take down Martinez. And this is not little pipsqueak Adrian Yanez. Okay? This is not skinny little Said Nurmagomedov in the clinch. This is like former featherweight champion Jose Aldo, muscled up, explosive, brick wall takedown defense that's been proven that I don't think is just going to get smudged in the clinch, which is basically why Jonathan Martinez got the win over Said Nurmagomedov, just smudge punches in the clinch. If Martinez can't just clinch him for 15 minutes and he's going to be forced to stand with Jose Aldo when he doesn't get his leg kick TKO, I think he's going to get knocked out, just like Davey Grant did to him, a big winging hook. Aldo's boxing is ridiculous. We know the body shots are insane. And this is not Petr Yan. This is not Song Yadong. Martinez doesn't really have anything going on with his hands. He doesn't. He's not particularly great. He's kind of mid up there. So I think Aldo's just going to whoop him up on the feet. I think Aldo's going to style on him in this fight and get a TKO. And we're all going to be impressed because he's like older now and he's one of the GOATs. It's going to be a feel-good moment. I'm predicting a second round KO for Jose Aldo. A hook upstairs. He's going to be ripping to the body, conditioning Jonathan Martinez to think low. The low kicks are going to be getting to him every now and then. There are going to be some hard low kicks landed, but I think that Aldo's going to check a lot of them and get out of the way of a lot of them. And I think he's just going to eventually find a beautiful hook upstairs, a big left hook, lead hook for Jose Aldo, leaping into it, catching Jonathan Martinez, putting him down, jumping on him, and knocking him out. I'm picking Aldo. A little worried that he's older. But again, people were saying, Martinez has a lot of hype and momentum going into this. I get it. A win over a boxer like Adrian Yanez looks good, but Yanez is a flyweight, dude. He's like one of the smallest, frailest bantamweights that doesn't hit as hard as Aldo and isn't known for having good leg kick defense. Okay? That's not a brick wall. And like, he didn't even beat Said Nurmagomedov. Okay, so Cub Swanson and Adrian Yanez. I think Yanez was a little bit overrated. We saw that. Yanez got beat by Davey Grant. I mean, he won against Davy Grant, but I think it was like arguable robbery. But either way, I don't see Jonathan Martinez as like a top 5 guy in the future. I don't think he's a future champ. And I think that an old head, Jose Aldo, 6th best fighter of all time, I just think he's still going to have the ability to show levels over a sort of one-dimensional guy like Martinez, who is a good kickboxer, but doesn't really got boxing. He doesn't have boxing. No hands. Kicks, and that's it. I think Aldo's going to be able to beat him. Outstrike him. He's still going to have his speed. So I'm going with Jose Aldo. He doesn't have to worry about a ton of power coming back in his direction. Like, unless he gets hit with a head kick, I don't think he's getting knocked out. I got Aldo. Let's get on to the next one. On to the main event. Steve Erceg versus Alexandre Pantoja. I'm not going to be one of these guys that tries to be nice and edgy with their Steve Erceg pick. Dude, if you're picking Steve Erceg, I'm just going to say this. You're either having too much fun, which is all good. You're having a lot of fun. It's okay. It's a pick. It's a prediction at the end of the day. It's okay. Or you're a fool. Or you're a fool. Okay? I'm not having so much fun with this fight to where I'm going with Steve Erceg. And I'm not going to be picking a fool's pick. Okay? Let's just be honest about this. I'm hearing people picking Steve Erceg by KO because he knocked out Matt Schnell. And now he's going to go in there and knock out Alexandre Pantoja, who has a granite chin, who, no matter how much punishment you dish out on him, it's just not going to rock him. We haven't seen this guy get rocked since his fight with Deiveson Figueiredo. That's the only guy to ever phase him with a punch. And Steve Erceg, with 2 little TKOs throughout his whole career, who knocks out the guy that before going into the Erceg fight, we considered to be the chinniest flyweight on the entire roster. This is a guy that gets dropped like 2 or 3 times per fight. And you guys are seriously picking Steve Erceg to knock Pantoja out? Can we please get a hold of ourselves? All right? Like, let's fucking relax. And then let's look at the fight before that. Him versus Alessandro Costa. I'm pretty sure that was last November. And the biggest moments that were happening on the feet where any of the guys were getting rocked was Alessandro Costa rocking Erceg. Whenever he pushed forward and swung big hooks, power punches at Steve Erceg, it would catch Erceg's attention and he would back the fuck up. Guess who's going to do that but better? Guess who's going to actually take him down and keep him there? Alessandro Costa took him down and kept him there for, 30 seconds, got reversed. And I'm hearing people talking about Steve Erceg, how he's like this monster on the ground. Who the fuck is he submitting? Let's actually take a look at his record real quick. Okay, let's look at his submission. Who's the last guy he submitted? Soichiro Hirai. Oh, wow. Let's look at Soichiro Hirai. Oh, my goodness. 4-4. Holy shit. Steve Erceg's a monster. He submitted Soichiro Hirai. I take it all back. If he's submitting Soichiro Hirai, who doesn't even have an age that's known to us, that's 4-4, that's lost his last 4 fights in a row. Oh my goodness, wait a second. This actually could be the guy that wins the belt next. Yeah, let's go on to the next one. Paul Loga. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness, he's 9-8. Forget about it. 9-8. Paul Loga. That's actually crazy. Now that I think about it, you're right. I think Erceg's going to win the belt. Okay, let's get on to the next one, bro. Oh my god. Wait a second. This guy used to be in the UFC. Shannon Ross. He got cut because he was so awful. He got knocked out 5 times in a row. If he's submitting Shannon Ross, then that has to tell you something. Okay, so let's just cut the bullshit. All right? He's good. Erceg's good. He's got good grappling. He's got good boxing. But he's went to 2 decisions against guys that are nowhere near the level of Alexandre Pantoja. And he's knocked out Matt Schnell, which, to be honest, I'm really not looking at. If you want to really get a good idea of his skill set, watch his fight with Alessandro Costa, where he's in the clinch for like half the fight, where if that's Pantoja, he's going to drag him to the ground with a body lock. And Pantoja is really good at maintaining his position once he gets top position and he gets into that half guard spot where he likes to camp. And I think that Pantoja is going to move forward. He's going to put tons of pressure on Erceg. He's going to run out the gates as soon as the fight starts. He's going to swing big shots on him. Erceg's going to be trying to snipe him with 1-2s. And I think Pantoja's going to eat the punches. I do not see Erceg as this big power puncher at flyweight. Pantoja's chin is held up against guys that have phenomenal boxing, guys that are actually able to drop people and hurt people. I mean, we saw Moreno drop and sub Figueiredo in one of their fights. We've seen Royval knock more people out than Erceg, and I know Erceg has good enough striking to KO people. It's skilled, but we're talking about one of the most granite chins in the UFC. And you guys are talking about, wait, the grappling of Erceg. Like, Erceg's grappling is something that he uses to win his fights offensively. He has good takedown defense too. But, like, he's now facing a superior grappler who has all the experience in the world. This is not some old man. Okay, I know he's 34, and that was actually kind of the reason why I was picking Moreno to beat him. Because I thought, he's getting a little bit older. He's not going to be getting that much better. Moreno's only improving. Moreno's a different guy, but I was wrong there. And you know what? Henry Cejudo at the age of 37, former flyweight champion, still looks pretty decent at 37. It's not like this is a 38-year-old, 37-year-old. He's 34 years old. He's still really good. He hardly took any damage in his last fight against Brandon Royval. Like, he took a little bit of damage in the 5th round. That's the only round he lost, where Royval was kind of lighting him up a little bit on the feet. But he just effortlessly walks through these guys and takes the punishment, hardly gets phased. When he gets in the pocket, he's able to land big shots. And Erceg, I'm seeing looking rattled when he's getting hit by Alessandro Costa. I mean, he got rattled by Matt Schnell a couple times. He's a guy that likes to keep his distance, and I just don't think Pantoja is going to give him the distance. I don't think he's going to give him any respect. I think he's going to close the distance, do exactly to Erceg what he's been able to do to Moreno, and I'm not going to buy into this hype of Erceg's takedown defense is Brick Wallish. Brick Wallish against who exactly? Okay? Brandon Moreno is a phenomenal wrestler. I mean, look at all the crazy scrambles we saw with Moreno and Figueiredo back in the day. That's why I was saying Moreno's probably not going to get out-grappled here. I think he's going to out-grapple Pantoja, and I was wrong. Moreno had moments in that fight where he was doing well. He actually had a dominant position at one point, but still got taken down with ease. Still had his back taken multiple times. Pantoja is just too experienced. He's too skilled on the ground. Nobody gets the better of him. You can't pick him. You can't pick this dude. With the eye test of what? Knocking out the chinniest fighter in the universe? Like, this dude has been KO'd by basically every single flyweight. Pantoja knocked him out too, with the same shot. We honestly need to be serious about this. Do not be irresponsible and pick Steve Erceg, okay? He's going to lose. I think he's going to get drowned. This is going to be a massive jump up in competition from the cans I just showed you. That's right. I think he submitted a guy 9-8, 4-4. There were a couple of 40-year-olds on his record too. Now he's fighting 34-year-old Alexandre Pantoja, who's on a streak, who hardly took any damage in his last fight, who's fighting in front of his home country, his countrymen. First main event in Brazil, I believe. Pay-per-view main event in Brazil. You think he's going to let Steve Erceg run through him? You think his chin is going to disappear this time? Good luck. All right. If Steve Erceg wins, I'll be, pretty okay with that just because he's more entertaining. Pantoja's not a really entertaining champion, but people are really overlooking Pantoja, and it blows my mind. 3 wins in the UFC coming off of a knockout over someone that's chinny. Just because he's getting the title fight, it's like you could throw Joshua Van in there. You could literally throw Joshua Van in there, and people might pick him. If Joshua Van were to fight Matt Schnell. Literally, take Joshua Van, put him up against Matt Schnell, have him knock him out, which he probably would, and people would be picking Joshua Van to pick this guy too. Pick anyone in the flyweight division that's not super chinny, that's good enough to beat Matt Schnell, that's on a 2-fight win streak. Put him up against Matt Schnell, they'll knock him out, they'll have a similar looking performance. People will pick them. They will pick them to beat Pantoja when he hasn't proven enough. That's exactly what I'm seeing. You have to be out of your mind to fall for this. So, Pantoja's going to run through him. Erceg is kind of, he's kind of frail. If you look at him, his chin looks a little bit sus. I mean, just the way his head is built overall, he doesn't have a head that looks like he's got a good chin. Let's be honest with that. That's why he's getting rattled by Alessandro Costa. Had a little decision with him less than a year ago. Not finishing that guy. Not subbing and finishing that guy. Let me guess, styles make fights though. Oh yeah, styles make fights. Yeah, Alessandro Costa's actually got a sort of similar style to Pantoja. It's just he's 10 times worse at everything. So I don't know. I just think it's goofy. I don't want to hear any of this bullshit about Steve Erceg beating Pantoja. Like, I just can't take it serious. I can't take it serious. If he wins, sport doesn't make any sense. I don't care how technical his boxing is. Pantoja has proven that your technique doesn't mean shit. Okay? Like, Brandon Moreno was piecing this dude up on the feet. He's got better boxing than Erceg. Yeah, he's taken more damage. He's a little bit more easily rattled, but he got dropped on a couple of occasions. Outside of the times he got dropped, he was piecing Pantoja up. Where was the big moment? Drop him and sub him. Drop him and sub him. I didn't see that in the Moreno fight. Moreno, just a few fights ago, was a world beater. Come on, man. If I see Pantoja walking through a guy like Brandon Moreno and just getting to him, getting him down, eating all the punches like they're Tic Tacs, what makes me think that Erceg is going to be the guy to put his lights out? Erceg. You guys are acting like this motherfucker's Rumble Johnson now because he's knocking out Matt Schnell. Enough is enough. All right? Pantoja is going to drown Steve Erceg. And I think he's going to have himself a Volkanovski moment in this fight. I think Pantoja's going to have like a third or fourth round Volkanovski moment where he starts beating the fuck out of Steve Erceg. Like, I do think he's going to have a moment like that where he starts grappling him and Erceg starts to break and he's feeling the pressure and everyone's saying, "Vi, a mulher, vi, a mulher," whatever they say in Brazil. And Pantoja, with the level of ease in which he's keeping Erceg on the mat, and Erceg is starting to fold because it's his first big fight, first 5-rounder. He starts getting tired and Pantoja starts getting a little cocky with it and actually might throw some ground and pound. But I won't be surprised if he stinks it up for 5 rounds. So I'm going to predict a on-brand Alexandre Pantoja stinky stinkfest where he's camping in half guard for 15 minutes of the fight. Maybe Erceg gets around. Maybe Erceg wins like the first or the second round or something. But I think Pantoja's just going to back him up and bully him with clubbing hooks and big body kicks, and he's going to push him to the fence. He's going to get the body lock. He's going to drag him down. And he's going to take his back. He might struggle in the first couple of minutes to do that, but eventually it's going to happen. He's just so tenacious, and Erceg doesn't have the experience. I'm sorry, I can't pick a guy that went to a decision with Alessandro Costa to knock out and submit Pantoja. I'm just not doing it. And I'm not picking a guy just because they beat Matt Schnell. As I said, anyone in the top 10, top 15, put him up against Matt Schnell. If they knock them out and they're on a 2-fight win streak before that, that's the equivalent of picking Steve Erceg. Can't pick that person. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time.